Hello and welcome to Child Free on a Budget. I'm Cody Hetzel. I'll be one of your moderators.
And I am LeNora Faye, the other moderator.
Thank you to our sponsors, presenting sponsor Childfree Media and champion level sponsor Childfree Wealth. Other sponsors include 365 Diversity, Best Child Free Life Possible on Facebook, Buy Childfree, Childfree Family, Childfree Journals, StopHavingKids.org, StreamYard, and the books The Age of the Child by Kristen Tsetsi and Wild Egg by Jennifer Flint.
And we have our disclaimer. The opinions expressed within the content are solely the speakers and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the event or its affiliates. So with that, we will bring on our speakers, please. We have Dr. J. We have almost Dr. Matt. And we are needing Elan. There we go. And Elan. Hello.
All right. So if you would mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll start with you, Dr. J.
Hey, I'm just having fun watching this. And Cody, I got to say, before I jump in, I got to put a question before. I wanted Robert to tell embarrassing stories about you from college, but you skipped it. I don't know.
we flew through that whole portion.
I don't know. But anyway, so I'm Dr. J. I'm a financial planner. I'm child free, me and my wife. I grew up broke. So frankly, the budget stuff is something I had to learn. I teach people money now because I've made more mistakes than most. My worst mistake, I say I made my first $1 million by the time I was 21 and spent it by the time I was 25. So I'll tell you how to make the mistakes is what I'm going to try to work on.
All right. And Elan, go ahead.
My name is Elan Cohen. My pronouns are they, them. My girlfriend and I are both child free and we are both disabled. And being so, it is very difficult to get by because the government doesn't pony up that much for people who are disabled. So we are definitely flying by on a budget.
Yeah. And Matt, let us know who you are.
I'm pre-doctorate. I'm not postdoctorate yet. Pre-doctorate Matt. I'm also a financial planner. I run my own financial planning firm that focuses on child-free folks. And I didn't grow up broke, but my dad decided to start a business in the middle of my childhood where we went from being just fine to where I was getting like third level hand-me-downs overnight, which was a pretty stark change. And now I've started my own business. And so that's where I've gotten my background in learning how to have fluctuating standards of living. So we'll talk about that as well as kind of the financial aspects of living child-free.
Welcome.
So the stereotype is that people or child-free people do not have money concerns. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Dr. J.
Oh, see, you really wanted to go there this time, this early in the morning?
I sure did.
Okay, so I set out to ask this question and look at it for my book. And here's the way I look at it. If you're child-free, that does not protect you from income disparities or anything like that. The data says child-free folks have a little higher net worth at the end, not enough to make a difference. But if you're barely making ends meet and you're child-free, the answer is if you had a kid, you would drown. That's it. It's not that like magically, I'm child-free, I'm rich. No.
What? You just burst my bubble there this early in the morning. Thank you.
I was waiting for my child-free check to arrive in the mail.
Ooh, is Cody sending you a child-free check? Ooh, I like this idea.
Wait, I don't need that PR nightmare, please. All right, Elan, go ahead.
Pretty much what Dr. J said, we are already very much walking the line of I can have enough for rent this month. So if we had kids, we'd pretty much be screwed. And I don't know where the child-free bucks are coming from, but they would very make our day or our month or a year. So I don't know where people get that idea that we're all just rolling in the Benjamins, because certainly not.
All right, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that to Dr. J's point, people who are child-free tend to have a negligible higher net worth. But the studies that show what that is, and I can give details later on about where you can find that information, but for people over 55 who are child free, the difference is about 5% higher net worth, which, to Dr. J's point, for most of us is pretty negligible. Unless you're a billionaire, that's not really a huge difference in wealth. So to their point, yeah, it's not really a huge difference between people with children and people without. But I think what we're finding is, as Alon had kind of talked about, that for those of us who are kind of on that line of being able to afford our lives as it is, having a child would drown. I think Dr. J mentioned that too. And so having children is more of a luxury thing than we're already like, oh, we're rolling in the dough. So I think, of course, not to make general stereotypes and things, but there's not like one specific situation that defines all child-free people. There are struggling child-free people, and there are quite wealthy child-free people as well.
So did finances play a role in your child-free choice, Dr. J?
So it's interesting. When I was working on the book, there was a lot of discussion about growing up poor and the choice to be child-free. And I started thinking about this for myself. And for my wife and I, you know, she has a medical issue. She's got 50-50 chance of dying. That kind of made our child-free choice. So I don't know that it was part of mine. I think what's interesting to me is there is some type of relationship between growing up poor and child-free. I don't know if that's correlation, causation. That's a separate research study. But it's just, there's something there. I just don't know what it is.
All right, food for thought. Elon.
In our current situation, with many of them besides our health issues, with our financial issues, it's not feasible for us to bring a child into this world, whether we have one biologically or adopt a child. It just wouldn't be fair for that child or for us. It just doesn't seem like a logical thing to us. It's not fair for anyone involved.
Yeah. Matt, how about you?
I'll give the cop-out answer of the group, and I think finances are like a consideration in almost every major decision of our lives, whether it's where we're going to live, what we're going to do professionally, if we're having children or not. But I would say with children, it's not the primary variable that we're using to figure out if we want to have kids or not, but it certainly is a component in my child-free story of do I really want the lifestyle is 90% of it of having kids and raising a family, and then it goes, oh, and in the pros column is less expense. There's less of a need to support someone else financially.
So what flexibility does being child-free give you? Job hopping, moving, the ability to spend or not spend money on personal growth, what have you. How is that? Can you explain how it has affected your life, just the flexibility of not having kids?
So the way I say it is child-free wealth means you have the time, money, and freedom to do what you want, which is a different answer for everybody. So I wonder, something for the research for the future. Somebody can look at this. Maybe the reason why we don't have more money at the end is because we spend it and have fun, like actually live our life. My wife and I, we embrace something we call the gardener and the rose, where one of us is growing and one of us is providing support. And she got a great job offer 1,200 miles away. So we packed up the 2 dogs and the cat and moved. And it was no big deal. It's like, all right, cool. We're going to move across country. Didn't realize we're moving to Mississippi in a post-road world. So, hindsight, a little different. That was a year ago. But, it works out for us.
Hey, we have room in Canada. Just saying. Alon, go ahead.
For us, it's difficult to just pull up and move because our budgets are so tiny, and due to other effects in our life, when you have chronic health problems, it's hard to just jump up and there we go. My camera just jumped for a moment. When you're on the lower end of that budget, you're like, can I move? Can I just save up and do what I want? And people are like, well, you have to save. You have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is, I guess, the next question, which is kind of a dated idea and not allowed. And when you, as my girlfriend just tuned in, when you're on Social Security, they don't let you save more than a certain amount of money. You can't have more than $2,000 saved.
Wow.
If you do, they start to restrict your Social Security income.
That's some interesting insight.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mess up system. So, sorry, tangent.
That's okay. Tangents are allowed.
That's still relevant, I think. Quite
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah, so you can't really save. It's difficult. So they say, well, save up. Can't have more than a certain amount in savings unless you have a child, and then you can save more.
So just to back that up, the other one, so like food stamps, any type of technical assistance from the states, all that, it's all limited by your income and family size. And
yes,
if you're not married, well, then your family size is 1, and you have to be below a poverty guideline that is so low. Like, I have no clue how you can pay for groceries at that point. So you can't get the assistance because you don't have a big enough family. And I'm like,
well, before a certain point, people on Social Security only got like $70 in food stamps or something like that. Now it's better, but it also depends on your location. Some states have it worse. It's not a great system. The United States, your local states, they really screw you.
Well,
they keep you poor.
They do.
Well, Matt, we'll let you round out the question there about flexibility. That's okay.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to do all those things. I like to spend time on personal growth and, do various things like that, pursue hobbies and interests. But for me, the biggest difference in terms of what I'm able to do by being child-free is that I can take relatively big or significant financial risks, because even if it is a bad decision in the end and I end up having the worst part of that risk and I fail or whatever it is, then I'm still the only one I'm responsible for. And so because of that, there is this sense of like, I'm not letting anyone else down. And I'll give you a specific example. I was diagnosed with kidney failure in 2019, and last year I had a kidney transplant. And as you can imagine, over those few years, I had a ton of medical expenses. So I was able to run through all these medical expenses, and then at the end of it go, I'm now healthy, or as healthy as I will be going forward. I'm going to start my business right now because I don't know how long, I will remain healthy or anything else like that. So I basically went from 3 years of medical treatments and spending a bunch of money to saying, I do not have enough money to start a business in the traditional sense of what people would advise you to have. I'm still going to go for it. And that's basically what I've done. So to bring it back to a higher level, being child-free for some of us allows us to say, hey, I have an opportunity to fail here. Whereas if you have children, you can't afford to fail. You're supporting someone else.
Interesting way to look at it, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we've got a question. Yeah, there it is. Incoming. Here we go. LeNora, I'll let you read this one.
What do you think about child-free people having less access to help? Do you think it's outright discrimination or that we're an afterthought? All right, Jay, go ahead.
So I did some research into this from a workplace standpoint, and there's a few states, it's kind of mixed, that protect based on family status. And you can't discriminate based on family status. But that specifically protects people with kids. The inverse just doesn't exist. And what happens is all the equations are now based on so in theory, food stamps or assistance is based on how many mouths to feed, which doesn't, kind of the math works, but it builds in a discrimination. And then we get into tax credits, all that. And people go, well, they get tax credits for kids. Well, it costs you $284,000 to raise a kid from 0 to 17, and you get about $70,000 of tax credits. So they still lose money. But it is discriminatory to an extent, but it's technically not discriminatory because we are not a protected class.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on that? Do we need to pull the question back up if we can find it?
Yeah, can we get the question? Just
might take
I'll jump in while we're waiting for it. I would just say that I'm not sure that there's specifically discrimination. I can't say if someone else is trying to discriminate against the child-free community as a whole, but I think to Dr. J's point, we're just kind of a mixed group that it's like, oh, we'll provide these things, like for like, you know, company benefits are often like paternity and maternity leave. And we're like, great, that's a benefit that I get zero benefit from. Perfect. So what we've actually seen, and Dr. J brought this up to me, I think, I don't know, a few months ago, there are actually companies now offering kind of a la carte benefits where everyone gets some PTO, everyone gets health coverage and things like that. But then you have like 3 flex options where it's like you can get an extra week off, you can do, you know, like an increased home office budget or work from home days, whatever it is. So now they're trying to start making that more equitable. But at the same time, I still think a lot of child-free people miss out on some of the benefits that are considered standard or traditional.
Ilan, did you want to add anything to that?
I had a boss who said, well, you don't have kids to go home to, so you can stay late. And I was on a salaried pay and didn't get paid extra for staying 2 hours late every night for a week when we had to do timesheets. I was like, thanks. Just because I don't have kids to go home to doesn't mean I don't want to go home to a life, to friends, to the spouse I had at the time. And, you know, there were benefits to going home versus staying at my job that I didn't get because I had to stay there.
That happens all too often. I think there are kind of endless stories of people getting roped in, excuse me, because they don't have to, you know, oh, sorry, I rolled into work at 10 because I had to, you know, take the kids to school and they go to 3 different schools, or I have to leave early to go pick them up, or whatever that is. And I'm not faulting people who have kids for that, but that doesn't mean we as child-free people should be responsible for picking up the slack on that.
So I had a recruiter reach out to me and say, hey, I see you're doing this stuff with child-free. I want to actually like advertise people are child-free and that employers get more out of their child-free people, so they should hire child-free.
Oh God. And
I'm like, okay, you're making my brain hurt because like now, you're right. We kind of are a benefit. And, you know, like when my wife and I were looking for, you know, for a job for her, she said, hey, we don't have kids so we can move. That's a benefit. But I don't think you could like advertise, hey, you can get 20% more out of them because they're child-free. That would probably be illegal.
Well, it's also a stigma and a stereotype that child-free people work harder. Like, you know, it's
we're a lazy bunch. At Childfree Convention, we are a lazy bunch.
So what are your thoughts on hearing the advice that people sometimes say for people that are maybe on a budget to try harder, pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Dr. J.
Yeah, so the problem is pulling yourself up with your bootstraps when you don't have bootstraps is what falls apart. You know, so I'm in Mississippi right now. For those that aren't in the U.S., Mississippi has its own, files the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour, which is $15,000 a year. If you're making $15,000 a year, I don't know how you pay for groceries. Like, never mind how you pay for housing and the rest. Like, the math just doesn't work. There are those occasions. And then the other problem we have to address is this debt cycle that everybody's stuck in. You know, because when you're broke, then you take out debt, then you end up paying more money on, then you broke more, and then you're like, and like, oh, pull yourself up by bootstraps. Like, cool. Where? Like, you know, what do you want me to do? I'm on, you know, I've already got 3 jobs. Does, you know, 4th job help?
Yeah. Ilan, how about you?
I'm feeling the same way. It's like my bootstraps got cut by the last debt I paid off. I don't have any. They're gone. What am I doing now? I still have debt, whether it's medical or student, or a company screwed me by offering me some low credit, and then it went up and up and up, and I'm dead now because I had medical bills. So now what? There's no bootstraps. There's no saving allowed. And $7.25 an hour, as Jay said, is about equivalent to what you get when you're on Social Security.
Mm-hmm. Matt, how about you?
So I have a bit of a funny aside, or maybe it's an ironic aside, about the term pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When it was originally coined, it was meant to try to do something that's literally impossible, because you physically cannot pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So for someone to go out there and say, come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, the original definition is, come on, why don't you do something that's impossible? So it's kind of funny because that is actually what a lot of this is. There are all different kinds of circumstances. For instance, maybe you can only work a part-time job because you're a caretaker for your aging parents or whatever else it is. There are a number of situations where you can't. It is impossible to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps or work harder, because as much as a lot of people would love to believe that we live in a meritocracy where if you work hard and are loyal to your company or whatever that is, you're going to make it someday. We all who live in this society know that that's kind of crumbled a little bit over the last 30, 40 years. And it's not as easy as just saying, I'm going to work hard and work my way out of, I wouldn't say necessarily poverty, but my lean situation when it comes to finances. So I think it's kind of a way for people to dismiss you as someone who is doing it to themselves.
So do any of you have any maybe tips or advice for child-free people that might be living paycheck to paycheck to think about? Dr. J.
Yeah, so my first thing is stop comparing against everybody else. You have to live your own financial life, your thing, and your situation. And unfortunately, social media doesn't really help it. We're always comparing against others. But your goal needs to be making an improvement on your finances each month. By the way, really hard for some people. And I get that. But it might be increasing your financial literacy, getting some of the debt paid down, getting on a budget, might be extra work, might be selling stuff. I don't know, but it's making one improvement that you can see that you're comparing against yourself, not against everybody else, because you're never going to win against everybody else. Just live your own life. We talked about, Cody talked about throwing out the life script. Throw out the life script, live your own script, and just make one improvement each month.
Good advice. Elon, how about you?
We see in a lot of the groups, especially like there's groups like double income, no kids. And some of those people are single people who have 2 jobs, and they're just flexing all this cool stuff that they're buying with all their extra money. And I look, I'm like, yeah, we're paying rent. And it's hard, as Jay said, to compare yourself to them. It's like, no, I got to do this. We're paying rent. I paid off some of that debt. I'm going to do okay because we're not behind on our bills. We pay them all on time, and we're not going to incur those late fees this month, because those late fees will kill you every single time, or the bounce check fees, killers every time. And if you can not do those and get your stuff in on time, then you're doing okay. And that's kind of the goal, is to avoid the late fees and get the bills paid on time. If I can do that, then it's all right.
Yeah.
And Elon, if you do that every month, you should give yourself a gold star. Like seriously, seriously, we get like so caught up. You're right on the flexing and all that. Like, no, give yourself the gold star for paying the bills this month, making an improvement, keeping yourself healthy, and just be happy with it and go, I'll do better next month. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Matt, how about you?
So I have to always agree with Dr. J. He makes me. No, I'm just kidding. He always just makes good points. And so I think that's definitely one that we specifically in the United States get caught up in quite a bit. The whole keeping up with the Joneses cliche or kind of habit that we get into. We live in what we all call a consumer society. So they're selling it to you as you're not happy now because you don't have this thing or whatever it is. And I know a lot of people can't afford to go out and buy that kind of stuff, but we're kind of taught to consume. So that's definitely one. But the other thing I find is really helpful is to spend money when you're working on where your money goes. Spend money where you spend your time. So for instance, I've worked with people in the past who are spending gobs of money on their apartment, but they work a 9-to-5 job, and then they also do something like bartend in the evenings. And I'm like, you're at home to sleep and store your stuff. You don't need to have this luxury 12th floor apartment or whatever it is. You don't like, that's something that you can actually live more affordably. You don't spend much time there. But maybe, for instance, you're spending quite a bit of time, in something else, whatever it may be. I'm not going to try to get into specifics. Spend more time doing that, or spend more money where it will make your life better in those areas. And when you start to align your time and your money and they go towards the same things, you'll find more fulfillment and happiness in that. But also you'll start to find that, wow, my money is kind of working itself out because where I'm spending my time, that's also tends to be where it goes. And it usually kind of cleans things up a bit.
Yeah, it's a good tip. Good tip for sure. So I think we've got it. Yep, incoming question. Here we go.
It's like a quiz question. Dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun.
get ready, everybody.
Get your
All right. Oh, for Dr. J, do you offer credit repair services?
Yep. Yes and no. Let's be real on this. My answer to everybody is to get out of debt and stay out of debt. When I did the research on who actually did well in child-free wealth, they did two things: get out of debt, stay out of debt, and then they maxed out the retirement plan. Which, by the way, those are two different steps. The hardest net worth is to get to zero, where you owe nothing to anybody, and then it's to get to 100,000 and millions pretty easy after that. So my thing is getting people out of debt and then going, there's an option to live a life without debt. Now, by the way, that'll fix your credit. But when you see credit repair services, it's like they call them, they got these debt consolidation companies, which the con is in the beginning of that for an intentional. Like, you're just moving things around. It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're still going down. You just need to get debt out of your life and make it not a choice. That was the big one for me and my wife. When we paid off her car, it was the first car I'd ever paid off in my life. I was like, holy cow, you can actually pay off a car. Like, I thought you had to turn it in every year and get a new payment. And it's a different mindset that you build over time.
Matt, do you have anything to add? That was directed to Dr. J, but.
So yeah, I would probably be wary of most companies that hold themselves out as credit repair agencies or anything like that. Not that they're all bad, but it's kind of like the, being a banker in 2008. It's like, they're not all bad, but you kind of question some of their motives, And so for now, I'd say there are some affordable services out there, but I think there are a lot of money coaches who probably focus on that, but financial planners as well will show you the habits that it would take in order to repair credit, such as there's a lot of things. You can message Dr. J or I afterward, but things like credit utilization rates, how you pay it down. Also, lots of times, this is how the system gets you as well. Getting rid of credit cards or closing accounts can damage your credit as well. So there's a number of factors where it's like financial planners can kind of help tell you where you need to go, how you need to get there, and what to avoid. Which will improve your credit as opposed to someone guaranteeing you repair your credit by 75 points in 6 months or whatever. And yeah, we'll see if that happens.
Yeah. And so with that, is there anything you would like to promote or plug or let people know how they can get in touch with you after the convention? Dr. J.
Yep. So Cody's been giving my plug all day long. So Childfree Wealth, childfreewealth.com. With our presenting sponsor, and we can do the whole thing, because Cody's going to have that as thing. Also, just a heads up, coming this fall, I'm actually working on a product for those people who can't afford to pay for high-end financial advice. Going to have more to come. You'll see. But when you download the book, you'll get on the mailing list, and I can get you that info.
I woke up last night startled. I was like, presenting sponsor.
And AJ's like, what was that? Like,
we've been sleepwalking. Well, I don't know about you. That came out wrong. Okay, yeah, that's not what I meant. I, in my own house and in separate country, have been sleepwalking, daydreaming about this. We've been going through the entire convention in our sleep. My end and Cody somewhere else.
Elon, how can folks reach you?
Well, they can send me money via Venmo. No, I joke. If you want to hear me vent about disability and queer issues, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Rainbow Spoonie, and maybe hear about the way Social Security screws disabled people if you're interested in the financial side of those things.
All right. And Matt.
Yeah, you can find me at anthrofywealth.com, spelled this way. And that's my website. And I'm a financial planner, just like Dr. J. Also, Dr. J and I are coming out with a podcast that should be on all main streaming services called Childfree Life and Money, where we talk about issues for child-free people, but then also how that ties to your wallet. So that'll be coming out starting tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your time, your candor. We definitely appreciate it. And with that, we will wrap up this panel.
And just a note, we have the halftime show, so don't go anywhere.